Well, thank you for being here this morning. We've got a great lineup. And we're going to start. Ken is going to lead a session on improving health outcomes with digital connectivity. Ken, can I ask you to kick it off, please?
Good morning, everybody. It's wonderful to see you. I'm Ken Mungett. I'm chairman of Milliman. And this morning we're going to be talking about improving health outcomes through digital connectivity. And when you think about healthcare, there's actually two important things here: health and care. On the health side, we have particular medical treatments, procedures, medications, but then there's the care side, the experience of actually becoming healthier. And then there's the process of receiving health care when one is sick, but as we saw with Adrian Gore receiving the award last night, there's so much potential for helping people to be healthier, to lead healthier lives. So on our panel today, we have just three fantastic panelists who are going to come at this problem from three different angles. So Alfred Beal is the Chief Medical Officer for AXA, and he's going to be helping us to understand the potential for digital connectivity, looking at the relationship between the patient, the doctor, the hospital system, from the experience of receiving health care. Rachel Edwards is the Managing Director for Verisk, and she's going to be looking at the relationship between the insurance company and the insured. So many people access the healthcare system via their health insurance company. And then Ed Moncrief is here. He's the CEO of HSBC Life International, and he'll be looking at the opportunities for digital connectivity to improve the strategic management of the insurance enterprise itself. So let's get started. Thank you very much for being here with us today. So Dr. Beal, we'll start with you. So if you look at big data, telemedicine, and the development of electronic medical records, they've all promised to revolutionize healthcare in recent years, make it more effective, efficient, and economical both for patients and providers. So from a patient's perspective, though, the revolution is really yet to come. So what's your opinion on the actual track record to date, and are there promises that are about to be kept, and what's still to come?
Thanks, Ken, for this question. Hello, everybody, and maybe being a medical doctor, you expect some medical opinion. Yeah, so at first place, and then we probably later we go further into more of the insurance-related stuff. And actually, I'm a little bit disappointed about the development over the last years, but I think, so we are now at the phase where things are kicking off and getting much better. So in medicine, I think most of it is about decision making. So you need to make, as a doctor, you need to make decisions about the next treatment, about the next action, about the next diagnostic. And as a young doctor, normally you take your experience in order to make this decision out of the textbooks and out of what let's say, clinical teachers have taught you. However, this is only limited experience. Over the years, and that's what experience is all about, to make better decisions, you accumulate based on your personal experience, a little bit of literature. However, still this is limited. So imagine a rare disease, you see maybe once a year such a patient, maybe even rarer. Wouldn't it be much better to take the experience of many patients out of many regions, out of different hospitals, etc., into your decision making? And this is all what it's about when we're talking about AI-enabled decision making. And here, AI is still, it's a big word. I think it frightens some people. I think it is not so difficult as it sounds, and I will shortly explain you what I think it's about. So with increased connectivity, which is now yet to come, with increased connectivity, with the use of large data set, with AI within AI, we can make use of this experience which is gathered, collected into these large data sets. And here I mean data, for example, from hospitals, patient protocols, monitoring devices, and all this information needs to go into one, and again another buzzword, into one ecosystem in order to learn out of it. This only is possible if systems, public systems, private healthcare systems, doctors, insurance companies work together in order to exchange data and to make this possible. Frankly, and this is the difficulty. So everybody working in a corporate knows how difficult it is from one team to another working together. Yeah, I mean, it's always the thing that we are looking forward working together, but we know that people love working in silos. Now, working over let's say, together with different companies, with public institutions, etc., with healthcare systems, with other insurance companies, and so even more difficult. And this is something which is needed. Let me give you a more concrete example, which makes it a little bit more tangible. It's about cancer care. So starting, for example, with skin cancer screening, and the normal journey is about the cancer screening, and then the follow-up of the screening, then the multimodality treatment between different specialities, for example, the surgeon, chemotherapist, radiologist, then supportive care, and then post-treatment care, so survivorship care. And all this requires an enormous effort of coordination. What is the next best action for this patient? And all this action requires decision-making. So what can we do next? In order to become much better, if we're working with connected systems, these decisions can become better. I firmly believe that only if we are working in a collaborative world, then we can make these things more efficient in order to reach a much better, let's say, patient history. And we know that patient journey, that especially in critical, let's say, situations, the patient journey is critical. Just to add on this, all these, you can imagine all these different parties in such a situation. So the doctors, the hospitals, the caregivers, the patients, they do an enormous amount of invisible work of coordination. So when do I need my next appointment? What needs to be done? And this invisible work of coordination is normally just working around barriers. So systems not working together, for example, let's say healthcare records having different codings, etc. And all this is costly. It reduces efficiency, and it is finally it is a problem for any kind of good healthcare and treatment for the patients. So I firmly believe working together and working in different specialities together is what it makes now going to the different level. We have the technology, everything is on the table. We have the technology. Now it's about working together.
That's so promising for the future. It's such a tangible way to use AI to break down the silos, improve coordinating care, get much more effective and efficient care for everyone. So I'm truly hopeful now. So, wonderful. Rachel, let's go on to you and talk about the relation.
I was happy to add to that. And in a past life, I was an intensive care nurse, trained and worked in private and public hospitals in the UK and Australia. So can sort of appreciate what we're trying to achieve, which is ultimately improved patient outcomes, improve the health of society, and live better lives and help people achieve that. And data and digitalization is absolutely part of that. I think, though, it can be quite daunting, particularly within healthcare systems, complex and quite old healthcare systems in many places, as to how to go about it. But I do think, I will agree, AI is quite an exciting time, because even if you think about how that could facilitate the problem-solving mechanism that is ultimately fundamental to what medicine is, you're presented with issues, problems, and then how best to treat them. But then this doesn't have to be massive in terms of its evolving process. There's actually an AI program in Australia at the moment that are using a program to diagnose eye diseases from hundreds and thousands of retinal scans previously implemented. The AI reviews that, looks at the current patient's eye or retina, and scans for eye diseases. So that's facilitating a streamlined process for diagnostics, gets someone the care they need more efficiently and is a support tool for the ophthalmologist. So there are tools already out there that can facilitate this, and I think if that can be more widespread, you've got something that can fundamentally help the healthcare system and improve health outcomes for patients. So I just thought that was a good example.
That's fantastic. Is there anything else that you want to add in terms of creating a more digitally driven insurance ecosystem as you look at that relationship between the insurer and the insured and the insurance company as it feeds into all of that?
Yeah. Well, I think, further to what Alfred said, we have a big opportunity to work together. And I think that in itself is a bit of a challenge, but we ideally are trying to achieve sometimes different things. But at the end of this, there is a customer, a patient, and their health, particularly when you're looking at health insurance products. And there is an opportunity to better service the customer through digitization, in my belief. But there are some fundamental things within the insurance space, at least, that I believe would need to evolve to facilitate it. And again, they are big things, but not insurmountable. One area I would highlight is the products themselves, and how they can adapt to the needs of the customer trying to access that health insurance policy. Health insurance just shouldn't be available to a select part of the population. Ultimately, people want to try and access better healthcare or have options available to them when they have healthcare needs. And one way of people accessing that is through insurance. But at the moment, insurance in many jurisdictions are limited in terms of what is covering, what the policies are covering, and I'll use chronic medical conditions or pre-existing medical conditions as an example. Traditionally, these risks have been excluded from cover on policies, but there is an opportunity to be more inclusive and to understand that risk and better manage that risk in the sale of the policy. But also offer options to customers. And through that really is required through the policy being customizable, and that is only really going to be facilitated through a digital process and understanding more about the customer at point of sale. So if you can understand more about the customer, any associated risks, and have a customizable policy, at that point in time, you're fulfilling multiple needs of multiple stakeholders within that value chain. And invariably, regulators are going to be part of this process where, a good example is in the UK, most recently, a fair value regulation was brought in, where it's not about just treating customers fairly, it's now proving that the insurers are showing they're offering value to customers. And how to quantify that value is difficult, particularly again, we work in the travel space, so, people don't expect to make a claim on their travel insurance. Health insurance is a bit different, but, so how do you show that you've offered value to someone that they haven't made any claim at any point during that policy life cycle? But value is assessed against the needs of that customer. So if you haven't understood what that customer needs is, then how can you show that product was valuable to them? So again, regulation will have a part in how policies are sold, and ultimately it pushes towards digitization, in my view, because capturing that information and using data to support and customize products is invariably where we're heading, I believe.
That's fantastic. When I think of the theme of this conference, accelerating the value of insurance, that's everything you brought up just points to that acceleration. Using digital tools to understand the risk better, to customize down to the individual customer. Like none of that would be possible in kind of the paper and age, so to speak. So yeah. That's wonderful.
Thank you.
Maybe
Go ahead.
I would like to add on that. I know that you're working in a company trying to make people with pre-existing conditions insurable, and helping insurance companies in calculating the risk. And exactly, I think this is one of the main points why insurance companies were hesitant in former times, to insure people with pre-existing conditions for health insurance. It is a complex, complex action. But again, here it cannot be only into one direction. So one partner is delivering knowledge to the insurance companies. It needs to go backwards, otherwise it will not improve. So again, it's about connectivity. In order to be able to do so, insurance companies need to learn how to code things correctly so that systems can correspond. Otherwise, we will stay on the same situation forever. So it's also a responsibility of the insurance companies, to take this serious and say, okay, I need to clean up my data. I need to clean up, let's say, the way I'm storing data, and I need to be, let's say, open, to give something back also, So otherwise, we cannot learn from data and become better.
Yeah, that's a fantastic point. It's got to go in both directions to realize that value. And so let's talk about that, Ed, from the perspective of managing the insurance company itself. Let's talk about the health value chain for insurers. As insurance companies attempt to do all those things that Alfred and Rachel talked about, what should they build on their own? What should they buy? What partners should they work with? Let's talk about that.
No, thanks, Ken. And I agree with everything that's just been said. But one thing I do need to sort of point out, and sorry for the blasphemy at the Global Insurance Forum, but this is a really hard thing to do globally. Healthcare systems have evolved pretty uniquely in every market on earth. Social welfare has evolved, fiscal regimes have evolved completely differently market by market, private supply chains, customer habits, cultural preferences. So it's a really difficult subject to tackle cross-border and on a multinational basis, right? So the one area that we do look at consistently is the value chain, right? And where do we have a right to play? Where do we have a right to not play? And where does that partnership model or that outsourcing model start to come into play? And for us, I think it's relatively straightforward. What we want to own is the customer relationship. And this is where digital has become the massive accelerator now because of all of the digital connected apps that we have across our banking and our insurance ecosystems. I can now engage with hundreds of thousands of customers digitally every minute of every day, whether that's connecting them to a doctor, whether that's submitting claims payments, whether that's doing facial diagnostic scans. I want to own that because fundamentally health insurance is a high intensity, high frequency business line. And as a life insurer, I've spent my entire career complaining, I wish life insurance could be more intense from a customer perspective and we could have more interactions with our customer. Health insurance gives us that. And digital now enables us to do that properly and to reduce the reliance on face-to-face intermediaries and bottlenecks that you get in your distribution channel. So I want to own the customer relationship, the customer interactions, and most importantly, that means we want to own claims handling. We pay, in Hong Kong, for example, we pay 60,000 claims a month. That's a claim every 40 seconds of every day. That's every 40 seconds an opportunity to deliver a good customer outcome. Every 40 seconds to deliver loyalty, to deliver customer satisfaction. I'm amazed how our industry has evolved, particularly in Asia, where insurers have outsourced claims handling to the lowest unit cost. And offshored. We'd never do that with our distribution channels. We never say, hey, I want the cheapest unit cost to acquire customers. I want the worst possible business to come in, right? Yeah. But culturally, we've evolved, and maybe COOs and CFOs have been allowed to run riot for too many years, but we've literally been driven down that model. Whereas, and so for my business, for our business, it's all about saying, the moment of truth is the claim. The stereotype is this is the chance to engage and delight a customer. So I want to own the customer relationships, we want to own the claims handling, we want to deliver good customer outcomes. Some of that is financial outcomes and some of that is health outcomes, right? And I'm sure we can talk later about health outcomes and prevention. Other than that, we want to own the risk. We want to own the product because we're a market risk business and morbidity risk and hospitalization risk is good diversification and it's highly capital generative for us. That's it. Everything else, we're completely agnostic.
So building the technology, for example.
That's it. We're not a tech company, right? Some people we've got about 200,000 software engineers, which I think gets analysts' attention from time to time. But we're not a tech company. We're a financial institution. So we partner with Silicon Valley companies who do kind of AI diagnostics when we do facial scans on our apps. We partner with Chinese technologies companies that do a lot of the STP rules in our claims engines. We partner with a Singaporean health tech that is our primary video doctor capability. We're completely agnostic when it comes to tech. And I think we know, and we've tried in the past to build everything. I think Rob said yesterday, trying to own the full value chain, it doesn't grow the size of the pie, and actually it just dilutes resource allocation. So for us, it's customer claims risk. That's it.
Fantastic. All right, let's move the focus back to the medical system itself, and go back to you, Alfred. So what are some concrete examples where digital connectivity can improve healthcare today? So, and also, is this really something that is only for the biggest players, the biggest healthcare providers and the largest insurance companies, or is it something where the full spectrum of companies can participate?
Thanks, Ken, for these questions. Let me start with an example which is widely known, which is remote patient monitoring, and probably you have in mind patients, so with portable devices, and these devices meanwhile are more sophisticated. They are cheaper. They can measure oxygen saturation, blood pressure, many other things. Especially for chronic diseases like hypertension, diabetes, they have shown that they can be effective and that they can reduce the number of hospital admissions and readmissions. So this has been widely known. I think now we are in a time where this is going much further. And two things became important for that. This is, first of all, the availability of broadband internet, even in remote areas of countries, and also that these sophisticated devices became much cheaper. So the technology is there, the connectivity is there, and now new ideas emerge. And I would like to give you an example where the idea is not bringing the patient to the hospital, but the hospital to the home.
Right.
So which is especially fruitful, I think, in remote areas. And just imagine, you're living in a more remote, rural area, and you're a family with 2 kids. What basically you are doing, if one of those is sick, is you're playing constantly triage. Is my kid seriously ill enough to go these 50 kilometers or even more to the next GP? And we know, so GP is never there, so normal office hours end at 5, and then there's a little bit, let's say, of emergency availability, and then emergency rescue, and then it's night, and most of the time anyway it's weekend. It's weekend or holiday time, so I have the impression. So you need to do a constant triage. So what kind of effort? I will find myself in a waiting room for 4 hours, and then just to be said, so just take an aspirin, or give your kid an aspirin, and watch what will happen. So this kind of constant balancing between the effort to be done and the responsibility. So this is quite challenging in many areas. What is now possible is the next step of, let's say, a virtual consultation. So not only by telephone, not only, let's say, via screen, but really doing an examination at home. And so how could this possibly work? So there are devices, so the size of a tennis ball, with a high-resolution camera, so where you're connected with the doctor, then you're talking about your systems, and then these devices, they get the information, so for example, through sensors, through, for example, special adapters, to do an ear examination, a throat examination, an auscultation, an electrocardiogram, and then the doctor is capable of doing a diagnostic and a prescription. So the main difference is, it is not only about anecdotal, let's say, sharing of symptoms, so that the patient or the parent is sharing this kind of, let's say, observation. It is really bringing data to the doctor. So, and which opens basically a new horizon. So it's a completely different form of, let's say, a virtual clinic. So this idea, making the home the preferred place for primary care, is something which I think is very important. So we have a company, so in Turkey, AXA started in doing that, giving our members this kind of device, and the success is overwhelming. So people are happy about that. So they feel that the insurance company is doing more, and our credo is becoming from just from being a payer to a partner, but how bring this into life, it's complicated, yeah. So, but this is an example, yeah, which has proven to be successful. People see, yeah, that the insurance company is helping them in getting access to best healthcare. The second question was about, is it only big insurance companies? Right. Yeah. So I'm not even sure if it is easier, anything is easier for big insurance companies in that context. So over the years, I have the impression the bigger you are as an insurance company, most of the time, it is the result of many mergers and acquisitions, so different IT systems not being able to communicate together, and insurance companies are really struggling in working with the legacy system. So, but in any case, this is something, yeah, kind of homework, yeah. So making your systems ready for this kind of connectivity. And I think here it comes also to this point, yeah, we are not a tech company, yeah, so insurance, we are not tech companies, but we need to do some homework, yeah, we need to clean our data, we need to be ready for any kind of connectivity, and we need to partner. So thinking in partnerships, I think this is most important. And I remember Robert said it yesterday in a panel, yeah, so we need to talk and work in partnership. And it is easy said, but I think it's very, very difficult. Yeah. So I just said in my first statement. Yeah. So there is always a tendency working in silos, thinking, yeah, that it's part of our competitive, let's say, advantage, doing things on our own. Do it yourself, IT, for example, yeah, or building up services on our own. But just doing things on our own, we will never gain the advantages, yeah, through, let's say, bigger, let's say, samples of data and all the experience that is out there, but which will only, let's say, show the beauty of the whole, let's say, efficiency. So if companies are working together. Here it comes about the question, build or buy. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I mean, this is such an old question, yeah, but my experience, this is one of the questions which is asked all the time. It's going down to the question, what is our core know-how? Yeah, and we need to make the decision, let's say, what does, and you said it, yeah, so what you care about claims, maybe pricing, customer care, etc., but what is our core know-how? And especially with technology, it can become very costly. So if we are not on don't do the right decision, but we can also lose core know-how, which will make us then depending on maybe on an external provider. Again, just I would like to make the reference to one of the discussions yesterday. So let's not talk about, let's say, what kind of solution do I need, yeah. So, but let's talk about what kind of problem do I have and what kind of technology and how do I, let's say, use the data available. Yeah.
Well, that's fantastic. You covered so much there. So Rachel, building on that, let's move back to the insured versus insurer. So how can data capture at the point of sale contribute to improved health outcomes for insureds?
There's a lot that potentially data can inform, and I know that these few days have talked about digitization as well as using data to help inform decision making and ultimately, ideally, improving portfolio performance and health outcomes. But there's some basic things that data capture at point of sale, even on a health insurance policy, that can help, triaging an individual down a customized route where potentially a more complex scenario or a complex risk scenario that an individual represents may be funneled through a more consultative sales journey, as opposed to there are a lot of people out there that don't necessarily need that hand-holding when they're purchasing a policy and can expect a straight-through process. Data can help triage that customer journey, that process. But data capture has so much value downstream as well. Yesterday there was talk about education programs that may help people to understand more about their health, educate on good life choices that may facilitate ultimately an improved health outcome for them. But even disease management programs, if you're capturing information about someone's medical conditions, there is an opportunity to help in a similar way. Just because someone has a medical condition doesn't mean you cannot improve their health outcomes as a result. And a lot of that is about behaviour, lifestyle choices, but also an understanding of what it is and the potential impact decisions have on the progression of that disease or medical condition. The data capture, again, at point of sale is invaluable downstream at point of claim. Alfred mentioned, it's a responsibility that data at point of claim is entered in a way that's structured and feeds back into the sales and underwriting process. But again, the sales data helps inform that claims process as well, and it's completely cyclical. So, obviously we're talking about data capture at each point in the sales cycle or in the lifestyle of a policy, but the value it can add to all stakeholders, intermediaries, insurers, the customer, is a really exciting thing. Ultimately, if we can help all stakeholders in that journey to improve their part in that piece, that's a good outcome for everyone. So they're the few things I'd highlight.
Can I just jump on this about health outcomes? Because I do think life and health insurers, I think we've been perhaps a bit guilty in the past of defining outcomes based on financial outcomes. Is our portfolio loss experience improving? Are we writing good risk? Have we reduced the cost of claim? Are we reducing our OPEX, etc. Right? And I think it's a little bit misguided. And we heard from Adrian last night that it was really the vanguard of actually redefining what a life and health insurer can do in delivering better health outcomes. And for me, I think, as Rachel said, it's really about improving, ultimately that journey from primary care through to secondary care to tertiary care. So what can we do as an insurer that helps a customer get from primary care to secondary care faster, to get to the right specialist faster so they can get diagnosed quicker and better and more accurately? What can we do to stop our customers from going into tertiary care, from having to go to hospital where the highest risks of losses are made, right? So I do think we need to re-engineer our thought process in the industry, and I think there's a lot we could learn from property and casualty insurers who I think have been doing this for hundreds of years, right? Understanding this is my insured's inherent risk. Here are some controls and some risk mitigations to reduce your residual risk so I can rate you accordingly. And I think we really need to start doing that better as life and health insurers. And as Rachel said, a lot of that can be done at the point of sale. A lot of that can be done at the data capture. A lot of that can be done in the advisory capability that we provide to clients. So, if I give you some examples that we've done in China and in Hong Kong, for our critical illness policies 5-6 years ago, we started giving out DNA tests. So checking for hereditary cancer mutations. Right? This wasn't data that was coming to us as an insurance company. This was simply something we were subsidizing for the customer at their own discretion. Because if you take this test and you see you've got a hereditary cancer marker for colorectal cancer, for example, again, it doesn't mean you're going to get colorectal cancer, but it means you've got a higher likelihood and a higher inherent propensity. So that probably means you're going to go for a colonoscopy now, rather than waiting until you're 45 like the WHO would recommend. So these are type of examples that we can do. We provide retina scanning, which again, good indicators of early onset dementia. We provide that to our annuity customers. Hong Kong is a very aged population. We have a huge portfolio of customers accumulating through their 60s, 70s, 80s, living alone. Again, giving them more opportunities at the point of engagement to better understand their risk and to manage it accordingly. And I think that's really important. There was a very good paper released by the United Nations Principles of Sustainable Insurance earlier this year called Health is Our Greatest Wealth. And it shows that in every region around the world, with the exception of Middle East and Africa, out-of-pocket spending on healthcare as a proportion of total healthcare costs has gone up over the past 5 years. So ultimately, my simplistic take on that is that demand for private healthcare has gone up. Demand for private health insurance has not gone up. So we really need to look at ourselves and say, well, actually, are we providing the right level of value? Are we deemed to be a relevant proposition now for customers? And if we're just a payer, And if we're just managing to financial outcomes, then I'm sure that our relative spend is going to go down. But if we can start using the data that we have, if we can start using the connectivity that we have, if we can start adding more value being a health partner, that out-of-pocket will go down and the insurance spend will go up.
Yeah. It lays out just such a great vision for the future. And I think the analogy to the P&C industry is really appropriate, because that shows that it can be done and gives us a path forward. And kind of some of the keys to making it happen are that connectivity between the insurance company and the healthcare system actually having data flow back and forth, and then getting all the parties to work together to drive costs down and improve outcomes. Let's talk briefly about distribution models. And you, Ed, you made the analogy between life insurance and health insurance. And so on the life insurance side, bank assurance distribution is widely used, but that really hasn't taken off with health insurance. Banks have struggled there to be a distribution partner. Do you see any potential for them to play a bigger role there?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I'm biased, right? My shareholder is a bank, and 80% of my distribution is bank assurance. So what I'd say is, historically, the bank was our biggest competitive disadvantage in the health space. Because bankers, well, I'm sorry for those in attendance, bankers are very, very good at many, many things, but they're really not interested in health. And it's entirely understandable. So going out and saying, well, I've got a critical illness policy that covers 180 different illnesses, I mean, it's not a conversation that a relationship manager is going to have with the client. And customers know this as well. And customers know that if something were to go wrong, I know my agent will help. I know my agent will help me manage the claim, will help me go to hospital, etc. Is my relationship management? Of course not. Is the bank going to send people? Of course not. So it has been a competitive disadvantage. What I'd say now is with digital, it's flipped and it's become a competitive advantage. And really through again, back to the high interaction that banks have versus insurance companies. So, the single biggest competitive advantage I have now is I can leverage a mobile banking app which has 1 million daily users. I don't need to pay for advertising. My acquisition costs are very, very low. I don't need to push out into SEO and SEM. My customers are there engaged with the bank. I just need to capture them with relevant, timely offers, promotions, and services. So digital, I think, has given bank assurance a huge impetus to succeed in the health space. The second thing I'd call out is data. Again, banks sit on a treasure trove of data. So if I look at what we've done in Hong Kong, as an example, so we've taken all of the bank's credit card data. Credit card data is amazing proxy for moral hazard, right? So we've taken all the credit card data, we've mapped it together with all of our group medical data, which again is very, very high claims, outpatient claims in particular. So we're able to build models of proxies for the entire bank customer base to say these are customers who are high risk, medium risk, low risk, etc. And what that's enabled us to do is effectively say we have 800,000 customers in Hong Kong who are pre-approved, pre-underwritten, no questions asked. And again, that has become a competitive advantage. If there's no question, we've become like credit cards now. I'm not going to waste time offering an insurance policy to someone who may get an exclusion or a bad outcome or a declination. We're only going to offer it to people who can say, I'm pre-approved, I'm ticked. So that I think has been a big driver, and I think we're only, as we said earlier, we're only scratching the surface from data connectivity, what we can do there. And then the final thing is kind of a bit more esoteric, is around payments. Again, banks are very good at payments. So in mainland China and Hong Kong, where I work, there's serious structural problems with payments and the way that money flows through the healthcare system. So for reimbursement claims, customers are typically waiting 5 to 7 days to get their money back. Right? And that's because there's 1,000 TPAs and everything's been outsourced and offshored, etc. So with payments, if we're able to connect payments to our claims engines like we have done, then the payments can come 5 seconds after you've made the claim. That's a great outcome. And even more important on the supply chain for medical panels, doctors in Hong Kong, doctors typically wait 60 days. It's a 60-day timeline, it's a 60-day pay cycle for them to receive money from insurers who, again, working through TPAs, batch payments, etc. So again, if we can pay payments T+0 to the doctors for all the pre-authorization claims that we've done during that 1 minute, 2 minute, 5 minute period, we're delivering a lot better outcome for doctors. And that may not matter so much for the big clinics, the big multinationals, but if you're a solo doctor, cash flow is pretty important. And if you're getting your money from HSBC faster than you're getting it from every other insurer, then I'm going to continue to prioritize HSBC's customers. So digital data, and payments have really, I think, created a paradigm shift for the role banks can play in health.
That's wonderful. I hadn't thought of it in those terms. It would never occur to me to talk about my cholesterol level and my blood pressure with my banker. Yeah. But if
You shouldn't.
But if banking is an app on your phone and you're using that, it's kind of wouldn't be a big stretch to also tie in with health insurance and your all of the insurance journey, so to speak. That's wonderful. So we're actually going to go on to audience Q&A now. And so I encourage you to take out the app and put in some questions. And John, would you like to join me on stage to help with the audience Q&A?
Thank you. Well, we've got a question up, so let's ask that. What do you think about the relationship between mental health demand in healthcare and health insurance coverage and the goal of improving health outcomes?
Maybe I'll take a stab at it. It's a very topical question, and I think unambiguously we can say demand for mental health care has gone up. The supply of mental health care, particularly in Asia, has not gone up to the same extent. So we do have a supply-demand mismatch, public sector and private sector. And again, that should, I think, create an opportunity for the insurance sector to come in and deliver digital-led, connected solutions. What I would say is it's a really problematic area for pricing actuaries and underwriters to figure out, because whereas I think physical health is a much more linear patient journey, depending on your diagnostic, depending on your illness or your ailment between primary care, secondary, tertiary care, mental health journeys are completely non-linear and completely random, effectively, between counselors, psychologists, psychiatrists, and the spectrum of severity is so broad. It's very difficult to model an expected kind of claims rate or an expected consumption rate. So what we're trying to do, and I don't think we've succeeded yet in Asia, but what we're trying to do at HSBC is kind of move the actuaries and the underwriters out and go straight to the client. And particularly in the group medical space, where you've got a few more progressive HR directors now saying, actually, this is kind of key to my value proposition as an employer, is I want to be able to give access to mental health solutions, whether that's on-site counseling or whether that's digital and AI-based sort of triaging into psychologists and psychiatrists. So that's happening now. And we've launched that in our group medical schemes for a few sort of large multinationals, and it's going to be interesting to see how that develops. I mean, what I would say is the underwriting fear that you'd get massive anti-selection has not happened. So at least in Asia, I think there's still a cultural reluctance to really trigger and consume these services, which may be different, I think, to parts of the West.
I might add to that. I think someone quoted yesterday that only 2% of healthcare spend is on mental health. I can't remember what region that was related to, but it's very underfunded and a growing concern. But I do think as well that it's well documented that early access to mental health services has a positive outcome for people, and it helps them manage and get support and continue a productive life without the severe escalation that might end up with significant impact on life and health. I do think health insurance obviously has a part to play in the access of that service, and particularly if it can facilitate that early intervention. That's a good outcome for both healthcare systems and insurers ultimately. If someone is suffering from a severe mental health condition that could have been avoided, they're not ideally, but unfortunately they're not working, they're not earning an income, they're not buying insurance, and there's flow-on impact. So there's multiple stakeholders that can facilitate that journey and improve health outcomes. sort of wanted to segue slightly because we talked about virtual consultations and the value of that, and rural locations such as Australia have really benefited from virtual consultations. There's a high prevalence of mental health conditions in rural locations, and it's completely underserviced. So it's a good example where digitization, enhanced access to healthcare can really help improve mental health outcomes to the benefit of so many different people. So I don't know, there's definitely not an easy solution as to how to take part in this. I know regulators have a very keen focus on how mental health is being treated within insurance as well. So if there is a mechanism through which access to and support of mental health conditions within insurance can be provided, I think that's going to be a positive step forward.
Very good. Okay.
Perhaps we have time for one more. Question for Ed. Customer experience is critical, but what about tech partner experience? Any insights to share to foster better experience for your tech partners? Ian Lee, did you ask this question from ZA? Maybe. For your tech partners in your procurement process, contracting, pricing, etc., with healthcares in Singapore and across the region?
Well, I think any tech partner that can go through our global procurement process is resilient and probably a good match. So I think that's sort of, it is survival of the fittest when you try and engage with the technology stack of a large global bank. I mean, what I'd say is that there's two things, and without sort of stating the obvious, I think, because we like many insurers, have a acceleration fund where we incubate sort of various fintech and health tech, insurtech partners. The key for us actually is, if we're going to work with a tech partner and a health tech partner, it's actually about now. It's not about tomorrow. And I lose count of the amount of visionary founders that come in and say, in 10 years' time, this is what I'm going to be delivering. But unfortunately, my targets are set quarterly, right? So I need to deliver now. So there does need to be underlying operational credibility and operational capability in order to integrate with our systems first and foremost, right? And the promise for tomorrow is great if we're just investing in you, but if we want to actually integrate with you, the promise from tomorrow is not enough. Cyber risk, I mean, listening to yesterday's, Andreas's talk yesterday morning, that scared me, because we hold lots of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of pieces of medical data. And again, our tech stack is now pretty complex with different players across the spectrum. Do I think we really understand our exposure to cyber risks and attacks in that space? Probably not, right? And actually, we could benefit, I think, from more outside-in experience there. But for us, again, it's a case of, are you operationally capable? Are you operationally credible? Can you conform to our standards? And ultimately, if we're going to work with you, pricing and procurement is something we determine, not you, I'm afraid.
Wonderful. Well, with that, we're going to wrap up. We've got a very important session to move on to next. Let's thank our panelists. This was just amazing.